Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, if we are going to be successful teachers, we really need to understand things from our students' point of view. If you want to be able to educate them, you need to be able to put yourself in their shoes. Feel what they feel. As adults, we often overlook this because we've already gone through the process of learning to read, and we've kind of forgotten how difficult it was during that process. And I'm guessing that when you learned to read English, there wasn't a lot of support from your teachers and from the general environment. But you've forgotten how difficult that process was. So I'd like to share with you at the beginning a little anecdote. This is our student, and they are getting ready to start to learn English. So he's going to introduce himself. Hi, I'm Min. I'm so excited to start school today, right? Whether he's going to a public school or a private school, right? Private language school. He's very excited. But he has one question. I'm not sure how to learn English, but I hope my teacher will help me. So the student comes to your class with the hope that you, as the teacher, have the solution of how to learn. But more often than not, because as an adult, the teacher has forgotten the difficult road that they took to learn to read because it was a couple of years ago. When the teacher comes into the class, there's not always that much confidence in knowing how to help students. So let's take a look at Min, how he goes, shall we? On his first day. In grade one, or on the first day of his language school, he's very enthusiastic. He has some questions, but mostly enthusiastic. He's keen to learn, right? And we give him a textbook, an English book with lots of vocabulary, lots of sentence patterns, grammar structure, and so on. So you can see here, he is holding up the book, right? And the teacher begins to teach. And luckily, this boy is beginning with DTP's new Let's Shine series. So let's take a look here. We open our books on the first day of class, and what do we see? I'm not sure if you can see it clearly, but we have lots of pictures and we have lots of writing, lots of words all over the place. And the teacher begins her class. Now let's zoom in here quickly. This is the first section. Here you can see we have 4 vocabulary words that we have to learn. And the teacher begins by saying, right, this one is sneer, more, her, up. Sneer, more, her, up equals laga. This is a laga. Share, more, her, up, laga. And at that very moment, Min looks at the teacher and he says, what is that? This is just a code. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is not the real book. I changed this to another language. And as you can see, the word is just made up of squiggly shapes. And each of these shapes has a name. Schneer, mol, la, zaka. How can schneer, mol, da become zaka? Have you ever wondered? In the same way, how can DESK become desk? D-E-S-K is not desk. D-E-S-K is desk. Logically, am I right? So, now we begin with one word, and then we teach another word, and another word, and another word. Many teachers will teach the students to spell the word first, schneer, more, her, la, and then say the word, ta. And poor little Min, he thinks, oh my goodness, is this what English learning is like? And the only way that he can deal with this is to begin the long road of memorization. He begins to memorize. And how to spell it. Schneer, more, her, da. And then we go on to the next word. By the time the teacher has taught the fourth word, poor little Min has already begun to forget the first word because his brain cannot take in so much information. Teachers, this is the main problem. Poor little Min. So after we teach these four words, then we have an activity here and we have more text that we have to deal with. But the problem is this text is in a code that Min doesn't know how to read. And so his journey begins. And then his teacher begins to give him English content. So this book, we call it what? It's content, it's vocabulary, it's sentence pattern, it's grammar structures. So we call this a layer of what? Now, because we're in grade 1, this layer of what is not too heavy. So you can see Min is already starting to lose his smile. Now he's starting to say, ooh, this is not as easy as I thought and not so much fun, right? Then he goes to grade 2. And what does his teacher do? She gives him another layer on top of the first layer. It's getting a little bit heavier now because there are more words to learn, more sentences, more reading passages. Then poor little Min goes on to grade 3 and his teacher gives him another layer on top of the 2 layers he already has. Can you see his body? He's starting to feel the pressure of learning English now. And if we take a look at his textbook, wow, in grade 3, look how much text is on a page. And they have to try and memorize all of this. Do you think it's an easy job? It's mission almost impossible, right? Now, the problem is that the teachers are giving the students content. In other words, what? They're putting one layer of content upon the next. And it's getting heavier and heavier and heavier. Poor little Min's brain cannot absorb all of these layers. And then, can you guess what happens when he goes to grade 4? Yes, another layer. And the words are becoming longer, more multisyllabic words. And look at poor little Min. He is now starting to take some strain and saying, oh. Then, in grade 5, look at Min now. Look at the layers of grammar, vocabulary, structure, and all of this he's had to memorize because his teachers have been putting one layer on top of the next, but nobody has taught him how to deal with the content of these layers. So this is the concept I want to share with teachers. Teaching what as opposed to teaching how. And that's what we are going to deal with today. Teaching students how is much more important than teaching him what. Because most students, like me, when they get to grade 6, do you know what will happen? Let me show you. Ta-da! Poor little Min, under all of these layers of content, he cannot support it anymore, and he collapses. And his interest in English dies. He doesn't become motivated. He starts to avoid English because he knows that learning English is all about memorizing words and vocabulary and sentence pattern, conversation, grammar, and so on. It's not a lot of fun at all. So there are a few students in your class that can cope, but they are in the minority. Most of our students give up on English. Maybe not even in grade 6, maybe even after grade 3 or 4. They find it's just not going to happen for them. And they just give up. And teachers, that is a travesty because it doesn't have to be that way. So we're going to be talking about the teaching of reading. And that's how we teach them how, not what. We want them, instead of seeing this when they open the book, their first skills book, we don't want them to see these strange squiggly codes. We want them to see this. Ta-da! I hope you can see this clearly. Wow! All of these now make sense. Oh, yes, this looks much better than all those squiggly things that I could not read. And that's what we want to aim for. We want to aim for students, when they go into an English class, they already know how to deal with the words, how to crack the code. And so reading is key. If we want our students to succeed in learning English or any language, the key is through reading. If you think about it, when we teach them conversation and vocabulary and grammar and so on, who do they go and speak to once they've learned this language? In their environments, there are not a lot of English-speaking people. So they learn all of this vocabulary and learn all of this sentence structure and conversation, but they never use it. And if you don't use it, you lose it. So teachers, it's a vicious cycle. The teacher wants to give the students more things and put more layers. The students forget it. But if they can read, they can start to learn by themselves. And it's a beautiful thing if they know how to read. So that's what we're going to be talking about today. We don't want our students to be like Min and collapse under the pressure of too much content. Because if they know how to read, those layers of content will be much easier for them to handle. And they can handle it by themselves as well, which is excellent. Right. Here I'd like to talk about the simple view of reading. The science of reading is a very hot topic in reading circles at the moment. And this simple view of reading is one of the key equations or key premises. This is the simple view of reading, but I would actually like to share my version of reading, which is a little bit different, right? My simple view of reading is, firstly, word decoding and recognition. This is the first component, a necessary skill that students need to possess. Word decoding. Word decoding means When I see a new word on the page, I know how to sound the word out. That's decoding. And word recognition, also instantly recognizing some words. So my reading can progress smoothly. This is the first part. The second part is multiplied by language competence. Language competence means how familiar your students are with this new language. In other words, when they hear spoken English, can they understand what they are listening to? Even a little? So if I ask my students, do you like to swim? Do they know that this is a question? Do they know that it's a yes-no question? Do they know that to answer the question, they can say yes or no? This is all language competence, meaning they know the conventions of this new language and some basic sounds of the language. So when they hear someone tell them a sentence, for example, if I tell you, oh, I am so hungry. If my student answers no, then I really know that their language competence is not very good. I didn't ask a question. I stated the statement, right? I am very hungry. And my student answered no. Okay, so that's an example of a student with low language competence. So these two factors are very, very important for reading to take place. So if we multiply word decoding and recognition by language competence, then we will get reading comprehension. And that's what our ultimate goal is for students to understand what they are reading. Now, I am an English teacher, not a math teacher, but I can do simple math for you. Let's take a look at this equation, right? Let's say our word recognition decoding is very good. So we give it 1 point. 1 point means very good. And our language competence is not very good. So we give it a 0. Can you see the result is 0 reading comprehension, which means my students can decode all the words that they see on a page, but they have not had a lot of experience with using English, listening to English, and communicating in English. So reading comprehension cannot form because they can read, but they don't understand what they are reading. So we have 0 comprehension. Let's change it another way. They do not have good word decoding skills, but they have a lot of experience in speaking and using and experience with English. But because they cannot decode the words off the page, even though their English is pretty good, they will still not have reading comprehension. Okay, now these are absolute figures. Let's change it a little. Let's give it a 7.5. So word decoding and recognition is a 0.75, which is not bad, right? Pretty good. And language competence, 0.5. Not bad, right? It's half. But look at the result. Reading comprehension is only 0.3, which means it will not be very good. So you can see that these two parts are essential and they rely on each other. They will affect each other. Even though this one is good, this one not so good, the end result will be less than perfect. So the only way for us to get a very good outcome is by teaching them good word decoding recognition, good language competence, and then we will have good reading comprehension. And then our student Min will be a very happy student because he will know how to deal with all of those layers of content that their teacher will be giving them. Right. So now that we know the simple view of reading, we know two things. One is students need to be able to decode or lift the printed word off the page. When they open a book, they see an English word, they need to have the skill to be able to take that word off the page and turn it into a sound, convert it into a sound that their ear can hear. And then when their ear can hear it, the brain has the chance to process it, to try and find whether they have this word in their brain already. So in our previous example, when we used our textbook, the first word was bored. If a student sees the word B-O-A-R-D, and they are able to use their decoding skills to sound out the word bored. As soon as they make the sound bored, that sound will go back into their ear, and the brain will automatically search for this sound. Now, the students have never seen the word bored before, but they might have heard it quite often in the class. The teacher will say, look at the board, please come to the board. Can someone help me to clean the board? So they have heard this word a few times, but they've never seen it. Then when we open the book, they see it for the first time. They decode the word bored. The sound immediately goes into their ear, and yes, this word sounds familiar. And that is when comprehension takes place. I got it. Okay. So firstly, they need the skill to take the word from the page, change it into a sound. The sound goes into their own ear. Their brain looks for that sound. If that word or that sound is in their brain already, which means they have already experienced that word before, comprehension will take place. But if the student can decode the word, make a sound into the ear, in the brain, but the brain cannot find that sound, comprehension starts to break down. Okay, so the more words that they have in their brain, when they sound out the words as they are reading, the more they will understand. Okay, so teachers, that brings me to my next point. What do we need to teach children to empower them to read? What things do we need to give them? Let's take a look. This is my student. And instead of, on her first day of school, instead of giving her a textbook with lots of vocabulary, conversation, and structure, I recommend teaching her to read first. If a student learns to read first and learns to read well, one day when they open up their actual textbook, everything they see in the textbook will make sense to them. So this girl is now going to start to read. In English, we say reading is like flying. If I can open a book and read a book, I can read about different topics. I can fly to other countries or other places and have different adventures and experiences, right? So if you need to fly, what do we need if we want to be able to fly? Please don't say an aeroplane, okay? I don't have that much money. An aeroplane is very expensive. Yes, that's right. Wings. There we go. So let's give her two wings. These are two essential wings to enable her to read and fly. These two wings represent two very important components. Let's take a look. The first one is phonics. You've probably heard of it before, right? And the second component is sight words, right? We will be talking about these in more detail in our presentation today. Now, I just proposed that instead of students learning a 4 skills textbook with vocabulary and conversation and grammar structures and reading passages, why not let's teach students how to read first? And teachers, this is something I'd like to address because many people have an issue with this suggestion. For example, some people will say, oh, we don't need to learn phonics and sight words because our mother language also uses similar letters and similar sounds. My question is, does your language contain all the letters that English uses and all the sounds? It might have some of them that overlap, but there are many letter combinations that your language will not have that English has, right? For example, the E at the end of the word that helps the vowel in the middle. Does your language have that kind of a grapheme? Probably not, right? And different digraphs that come together. So, for example, in your language, your mother language, do they have the OU combination that says ow? And in many cases, we might have the same letters, but we have different sounds. So, teachers, this is another issue that adults sometimes have. They think, well, I can do it, so my students will be able to do it. They assume that it will be easier for students. We shouldn't assume anything. The minute you start to assume things and say, oh, yes, they should be able to do it, it should be easy, that's when you start to lose a lot of students. They start to give up. So that's the first thing. Another reason why we should begin with these is because as native speakers, this is how we learn to read. And if native speakers need to use this way, then I think it's a very good idea that non-native speakers use a similar way to learn to read. One more reason I'd like to share with you. About 17 years ago, I started working in a country in Asia. I'm not going to tell you which country. But when I arrived there, everybody didn't know about phonics or sight words. They used the IPA system, right, to teach English. And I started to promote the use of teaching phonics and sight words, and nobody wanted to listen. They said, no, that's not suitable for our students. Phonics and sight words is only suitable for native speaking children. So children in Australia and America, Canada, and so on, that have English as their first language. And so it was very difficult to try and change people's minds at that time. But I can tell you now, 17 years later, it took a long time to change, but in that country now, even in the school system, students are starting to learn to read first before they begin to learn English, which means before they get given their textbooks, most of the students in that country begin in grade 3. So in grade 1 and grade 2, those 2 years are spent teaching students how to read. Okay, so this is something I'd like you to consider, that if we are getting students to learn English from the get-go, from zero. They have no experience, no ability, and we start teaching them vocabulary, sentence patterns, conversation. We are going to have the problem that means we are going to hit a wall sooner or later. So instead of hitting that wall, we need to find a way to go around that wall. And that way is by teaching them to read. Okay, so these are two vital components to teaching students how to read, phonics and sight words. But there's another one, a third vital component. Let's take a look. When we are learning to fly, it can be a little dangerous, right? You might fall and hurt your head. So we've given her a safety helmet. And in this metaphor, this safety helmet represents something called language competence. You might have heard this before, right? In my simple view of reading, language competence or language experience. Experience hearing the language, using the language, and so on. Included in this language competence is something called an auditory library. An auditory library is a library of words in your head that you have heard before in English. So we need to help our students build an auditory library as well as teaching them sight words and phonics at the same time. And this is very important because when they start to use phonics and sight words to decode the words and create the sound, as I said before, the sound goes into their ears and the brain starts to look for those sounds. If those sounds of the words are not in their library, for example, if a student reads the sentence, the dog runs after the cat. If those words, the dog runs after the cat, they can read it quite well, but they have a limited auditory library. So they don't know the word dog. They don't know the word cat. They don't know the word after. They don't know the word run. Even though they can read that sentence well, it makes no sense. And when it makes no sense, they will say, oh, why am I doing this? They lose motivation. And that's a very important problem, teachers. Once students become demotivated, it's very hard to get them motivated again. So, once again, phonics, sight words, and language competence. These three components are essential for reading and language learning success. Let's take a look at these components in their separate parts, shall we? Okay, how do we teach children what they need to read? This is the important part. We know what is phonics, sight words, and building an auditory library as well as language competence. Now, how do we go about it? That's the question you would like me to answer, right? Let me show you. Teaching reading is unlike teaching English. In English teaching, we teach vocabulary, we teach sentence structure, grammar, and so on, right? But teaching reading is just like this father teaching his son to ride a bicycle. It's teaching a skill. So I'd like you to think about reading as the same as riding a bicycle. And this is very important for the way we teach. It affects how we teach. When this father is teaching his son to ride a bicycle, he will first show his son what to do, where to sit, where to put his feet. Then he will instruct him a little bit on safety. And then immediately he will let the boy try to ride the bicycle. That's the difference. The boy doing and the parent observing. That's very different from the traditional way of teaching English, which is the teacher keeps on teaching. When we are teaching reading, we need to use the 5 E's. Let me show you my 5 E's, right? The 5 E's are a formula that I developed through my years of teaching. And this formula I'll use after every class. After I taught the class, I get back to my office, I take out my hand. Luckily, we have 5 E's and we have 5 fingers, so no preparation needed. And I ask myself, I evaluate my performance as a teacher by using these 5 E's. So let me share these 5 E's with you, and you can use this formula when you are evaluating and also planning your lessons. Right. So the first E stands for efficient. Efficient means in the shortest possible time to get the information over to the students. Efficient means the time that the teacher spends teaching must be as short as possible, especially in reading. That is efficient teaching. I have observed some teachers' classes where the teacher speaks throughout the class. They keep on teaching, they keep on repeating words and getting the students to repeat after them. That is not efficient teaching, especially in reading. What we want to do is use a short amount of time to give the students the main idea and then let them use it, to apply it, to become familiar with it. Okay, so I'm sure you're familiar with the 3P teaching process, PPP. The first P is presentation, right? Presentation is this part here. How long in a class, if your class is, let's say, 1 hour, how much of this hour does the teacher spend introducing new concepts? And in the teaching of reading, that would be how long do they spend teaching the letter sounds and how the sounds come together, and even asking the students to repeat after the teacher. Ask yourself that question. If you can spend the shortest amount of time, the students have more time to engage and practice. Okay, so the second E is effective. It means that once I've introduced something to my students, do they get it? And are they able to try and use it by themselves? If they can, that means your teaching method or your way of introducing the content has been very effective. And when we talk about reading and teaching phonics, it's very easy to evaluate this one. If students are able to read words, spell words from what they hear, then that is effective. Then they are on their way, right? The third E is engaging. Is the class engaging? Which means, are the students doing the learning, or is the teacher spending too much time teaching and talking to students? And here, teachers, I would like to propose in your English class, especially when you are teaching reading, the concept of repeating after the teacher. I see a lot of teachers teach and they say, okay, boys and girls, cheer, 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 asking the students to repeat after the teacher. That is neither efficient, nor effective, nor engaging. Because anybody can just repeat after somebody. To repeat doesn't require any brain power. And what they do is many students just repeat and forget. Repeat and forget. So if this is a technique that you use in your class, I seriously recommend you think about using it, because it is neither efficient, effective, or engaging. The students just repeat after the teacher. Instead of repeating after the teacher repeats after the students. I'll show you what that looks like just now in a demonstration class, okay? So the students must be doing the learning more than the teacher doing the teaching. So the teacher efficiently gives them the new information, then they start to use it. They apply it and they learn. They make mistakes, sure, but that's part of the learning process. The fourth E is educational. As a teacher, we all want to improve our students' knowledge. So while we are teaching them to read, we can improve their general knowledge, knowledge about language, knowledge about things in their world, knowledge about morals, good things to do, bad things to do, and so on. So included in our teaching of reading, we need to add an educational element so that we are improving them as human beings, right? Enabled to go out into the world as more complete humans, right? So in the case of teaching reading, we're not just teaching them how to read words. Those words can be used in an educational manner. I'll be showing you how to do that just now as well. Finally, enjoyable. This is the most important one. Enjoyable for who? For your students? No, not necessarily, not for your students. More for you as a teacher. Ask yourself, did I enjoy this class? If you can say, yes, I enjoyed it, that means you had a successful class. Because if you enjoyed it as a teacher, your students will have enjoyed it as well, right? So that is a given. So teachers, these are the 5 E's of teaching. Efficient, using the shortest amount of time. Effective, the thing that I taught them, are they able to use it? Can they read? Can they write? Can they spell? Engaging, how much time were the students doing things? And how much time was I speaking? If they spent a lot of time engaged in the class, that's a good class. Educational, what things did I bring that are outside of the focus, which means this vocabulary or these words or this reading passage? What other things did I bring to this class? And then finally, did I enjoy this class? Enjoyment is very important. If you want to be a successful teacher, you need to enjoy what you do. And I find that empowering my students in getting them engaged and letting them use their language, that gives me a lot of satisfaction. And when they are engaged and they can use it, they will enjoy it as well. Okay, teachers, so keep these 5 E's in mind as we go forward today, because we need to apply them in our teaching. Okay, so let's go back to teaching reading now. Remember, I propose that students, before they learn any other thing in English, they learn to read. Now, you might say to me, oh, no, I think it's better for students to have some experience in English before we teach them to read. No, it's not necessary, because if we teach reading skills well, they will get the learning experience as well as learning the skills of reading. So in English, we have a saying, kill 2 birds with 1 stone. So Through the learning to read process, students experience language. I'll talk about this a little bit more later. Right. So let's take a look at reading skills. Firstly, they must be taught as early as possible, which is what I've said. Before they begin to learn anything else, they should learn to read from the beginning, right? From the basics. And it must be taught explicitly. This is also very important. Some teachers say, yes, I teach phonics. I teach it here and there and here and there. Whenever I see an example in the textbook, I might talk about it. Teachers, that is not explicit reading teaching. And that is not a very effective way of doing it either. Because when we say explicit teaching, we need to have a dedicated time and class just teaching them how to read, so that they know when I'm in this class, this is what we're doing. We're learning to decode words and read passages. Not, oh, we're learning about all of this vocabulary, and then sometimes the teacher says, oh, do you know this letter says this letter says that? That is not effective. So you will see many course books have some section of phonics somewhere. That's not enough. You need to have a dedicated phonics class or course for students to be able to read successfully. Okay, so when I say explicit, I mean you have to be sure and clear that you are teaching them how to decode words. So that brings us back to phonics, explicitly teaching them how letters and sounds work together, right? So what is phonics? Basically, I'm sure most of you know, but for those of you who don't, phonics is the system of letters. We have 26 letters in the alphabet, and sounds. Sounds are more important than letters. And when we teach phonics, we teach them the letters and we teach them the sounds that are associated with those letters. So, for example, we will teach them that this is the letter A. His name is A. When I see this letter, I will say, hey, that's A. Hi, A. But when this letter is in a word, he speaks to his letter friends. And when this letter is in a word and speaks to his friends, he normally says, ah, ah. That's right. That is what phonics teaching is. The letter and the sound. The letter B, this is his name, B. B says B. And so on. That is explicit teaching. But it's also not so simple. As we move on, we teach them letter combinations that come together to make new sounds. So in English, we have 44 sounds, only 26 letters. We use letter combinations to make different sounds. That is what phonics teaching is. It's very simple, actually. So let me give you a quick example, a short demonstration, right? We are teaching the alphabet, and I have already, let's pretend that this is not the first class, this is the third class. So I've already taught you that A says A, B says B, C says K, D says D. And in today's class, we are doing this letter. Tan-ta-dan! This is the letter E. Can you say hi, E? Boys and girls, this letter's name is E. But when E is in a word and he sees his letter friends, he says A. A. That's right. A. As in egg. 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 Elephant in an egg. Elephant in an egg. Elephant in an egg. What sound do you hear twice? Elephant, egg. Egg. That's right, because this letter is talking to his letter friends. Right. So, boys and girls, we have egg as in egg. What's the first sound in the word egg? Egg. That's right. Nice. Elf. What's the first sound in elf? E. That's right. Elephant. What's the first sound you hear? E. There we go. So this letter's name is E. E says E. Just like that. Okay. So what we start to do is give the students an introduction to this letter. The letter's name is E, and the sound that the letter makes. E. Okay. And then we do the same with the letter F. Ta-da! This is my friend F. Can you say hello, F? Hello. F never says F. When F sees his letter friends, he says, that's right. Actually, this letter is afraid of the wind. When the wind blows, it will fall over, right? As in fish. 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 Funny fish. Look at this fish, boys and girls. He's so funny. He has a hat and a red nose and big lips. Funny fish. Funny fish. What sound do you hear twice? There we go, boys and girls. So the letter E says F. The letter F says, well done. As in fish. As in flower. As in farm. Did you see, if we take out the 5 E's, efficient. Was I efficient? I quickly used my flashcards and I gave you the name and the sound. And then we went into some example words. The same with F. So in my presentation, it should take about 5 minutes, and that's it. After that, we can start to test the students. Now, teachers, this is very important. Once I have presented the new content, I no longer present. I no longer teach. I change from teach to test. What does that mean? It means that after my initial introduction, in other words, during the presentation process, as soon as we move into practice, I will no longer tell them that this letter says A. What I will do is, boys and girls, this is the letter E. That's right. And E says L. Very good, boys and girls. Do you see how we do that? We move from teaching to testing. We ask them to produce the sound. If they cannot produce the sound, then we know, we need to go back and do a little bit more introduction. This is the letter F. F says, correct. We'll never say, oh, boys and girls, right? Do you remember I told you this is F? Say F. F says, that's just repeating after me. That's not efficient, not effective, okay? And not engaging. When I test them, this letter says, I require them to do the thinking and try to remember, yes, this is the letter E. E says A. They are engaged in the lesson. And another form is this example here. This letter says A. L. Very good. A. Good. A. Very nice. Elephant. Egg. Elf. Nice, boys and girls. Let's try and say it once again. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go. Do you notice as the teacher, I'm silent. The students are starting to produce. Okay, that's the key point. And then, of course, we want it to be enjoyable. So just let me switch on my speaker here to make sure that you can hear it. And we can do a chant. Here we go. Right, let's try it. Can you hear it? Sorry.
S-L-F-A, elephant, egg, elf. S-L-F-A, elephant, egg, elf.
Okay, so the students can stand up and do the chants together. That's enjoyable, right? Let's try the next one. This letter is F. F says, good. Fish. Remember, as a teacher, I repeat after you. That's okay, but the students must say it first. Good. Flower. Very nice. Farm. Good. Flower. Very good. Let's try it again. 1, 2, 3, go. Yeah, well done, boys and girls. Okay, efficient, effective. If they can say all of these plus the letter sound, then I know it's effective. Engaging. They are doing the producing, not me. And enjoyable. If we do a chant and we listen to it, sorry, let's go back here quickly. Try it again.
Fish, flower. Fish, flower.
Okay, right. So they can get involved as well. Stand up, move their bodies. So now we have taught you 6-letter sounds. And B, K, D, E, and now we can move into the next part. Remember, teachers, this is how we begin to teach them to read. Let's take a look at this section here. This is the most important part of our teaching reading class. And in my personal opinion, I would say that this, what I'm going to show you now, is probably the most important moment in your students' English learning career. Why do I say it's the most important? Let me show you first, okay? Let me show you, and then I'll tell you why this is so important. So I'm going to do a short teaching demonstration, and I hope that maybe you can also use this kind of demonstration in your teaching as well. Right, so boys and girls, do you remember this letter? This letter's name is B. B says B. Very nice, well done. This letter's name is E. E says A. Very good. B. A. Very nice. Now we are going to do some magic. Do you want to see? Okay, if you want to see, please say 1, 2, 3. I want to see. Okay, here we go. B, A, B, A, B, A, B, A, B. Ta-da! Magic! Two sounds now become one. One more time. B, A, B, e, b, e, b. That's right, boys and girls. Very nice. These two say b. This letter says d, b, d. Let's try and put them together. Okay, are you ready? You have read your first English word. Bed. Nice, boys and girls. Bed. 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 Yeah, well done, boys and girls. Do you know what a bed is? When I go to sleep, I sleep on my bed. Dun, 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 dun. Well done, boys and girls. Now, let me tell you why I think this moment, this short demonstration, is the most important point in your students' English learning career. It's because at this moment, I'll show you how the pieces of the puzzle, in other words, the sounds of the letters, how they come together to create a word. And so many times in my classes, I watch my students' reaction after I do this demonstration. Their eyes light up because they finally understand how these English words are created. I just showed you, right? Instead of, boys and girls, B, E, D, B-E-D, bed. How can B-E-D be bed? B-E-D is beady. I sleep on my baby. Do you see what I mean? But now they know, using the sounds, putting the letters together like pieces of a puzzle. I get it. And it's so easy. I can do it. I want to do some more. So I say, okay, no problem. Let's do another one. This letter says, very nice. This letter says, ah. Let's put them together. Ah, ah. Cat. Very nice. Well done, well done. Cat. These two say cat. This one says b. Cat, b, cat, b, cat, b. Cab. Nice, boys and girls. Well done. You have read your second English word. And boys and girls, no matter what, they are so excited because they are engaged. And it's effective. They can start to read words. And teachers, the most important point is they start to understand how. Not what, as I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation. Now we are looking at how. Now, sure, this is very, very basic, but teachers, don't overlook the importance of this basic step. Once they understand this concept, they can start to apply it to all of the words that they read. Now, many adult teachers assume that, well, my students should know this. They should understand this already. But the truth is, most of your students will never understand it unless you explicitly show them how to do it. So this is a very important moment in their teaching, right? So once we have taught them how to blend, b, e, be, d, bed. And this word has a meaning. We can go on and read a couple more. Get them to apply it. One thing I also found is that boys are not as good at language learning as girls are, right? That's natural. But once we start to teach them this way, where we have the pieces of the puzzle that we can see, that we can touch and put them together, boys especially can relate to this kind of teaching. They say, I can see it, I can touch it. It's not an abstract concept. It's not BED, bed. How can BED be bed? That's how boys tend to think more, right? So teaching them explicitly will really help them to get it, and then you can begin to move faster and faster. But without this knowledge, it'll be very hard for students to get onto the next step and the next step and the next step. So this is the basic steps when we're teaching phonics. Right. So once we have done this, then there's this part over here, sight words, which brings me to the other wing. Okay. And that brings us to the second wing, as I said, right? These two need to work together to produce reading. And then don't forget this part here, which we will be talking about just a little bit later. Okay, so sight words. Let's take a look at this sight words thing. What are sight words? Sight words are very, very common words that we often see in texts. I call them the little words in between the big words in a text. These are words, we call them service words. They have a function to create a complete sentence, right? So there are words like adjectives, conjunctions, pronouns, determinants, things like those that are not so important. They don't have a very clear meaning, but they are essential to create a complete sentence. Now, phonics, I just showed you how we teach phonics. You teach them the sound and then how the sounds come together to create a word. Sight words is totally opposite. The way we teach phonics and the way we teach sight words are two complete opposites. Let me show you very quickly. Sight words are also very, 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 very common. And they're very, very important because they take up a lot of text. Let me just show you very quickly. In this text that I took from one of our readers, right? There are different kinds of words in this text. Firstly, this text comes from a reader that practices the long O sounds, the different combinations of the long O sound. So O-A, O-W, the E at the end of the word, we call it the silent E, helping the letter O, and the letter O itself. So all of those combinations. But let's first look at the sight words, right? If we take this text, we see that there are 99 words in total. Let's just take a look at the sight words. Ta-da! In that piece of text, there are 57 sight words. Wow, that's much more than half. That is close to 60% of this text is just sight words. So, sight words are taught in a method called see and say, see and say, see and say. We just get the students to recognize these words on sight. If the students can read these words on sight, just see and say, see and say, see and say, they can save a lot of their brain power for decoding the words that come in between, right? And also, if they can see and say these words very fluently, becomes very fluent and helps with reading fluency, right? If they can save 60% of their brain power, what will they do with that 60% that they can save? They can use that to start to understand what this passage is about. But if they don't know sight words very well, that means that they actually have to read every single word of the 99 words. If they have to read every single word, their brain will become very tired. And they have no free brain power to understand what they are reading about. They are just reading the words. That's enough. But they don't understand what they are reading. So that's very, very important. Then if we take a look at the long O sounds, these are all the words that are of the long O. There are 17 of them, of the 99. And finally, there are other words that they already know how to decode because they have been learning phonics for quite some time. So all of the rest of the words are 24 already decodable words. So when you look at a text like this, remember, a large majority of the words in this text are just sight words. I created a computer program that I can input some text, and immediately it will tell me how many sight words are in that text, what percentage of the text is sight words. It's very, very interesting. And using this tool, every time I check a piece of text like this, I never get a result under 50%, from 50 up to 67% around there. So it's a very high percentage, which means sight words are very, very, very important. Okay, so let's take a look at how we teach sight words, shall we? If we compare it to phonics teaching, in phonics teaching, we call it a bottom-up teaching. I teach you the individual parts and how to put the parts together. In sight words, I just give you the word that you have to learn, right? So let me give you a short example. Boys and girls, today we have 4 new sight word friends to learn. Do you want to see? Okay, here we go. Is. Yes, is. Very good. The second one is up. Up. Very good. This one is. Very nice, boys and girls. Well done. See and say. See and say. The next one, are you ready? And. 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 Very good. Okay, here we go. There we go. Well done, well done. See and say, see and say, see and say. And finally, it. It. Very nice. So we have and, is, it. Very good. And then we can go very, very fast. Are you ready, boys and girls? See if you can see and say. Here we go. And you continue until you feel that they have a good grasp of these words. They can see and say them very, very quickly. And you know what, teachers? Students love this. The faster you go, the faster they say them, the more sense of achievement they will feel. Very importantly, don't worry about the meaning of these words. Don't try and translate them or explain the meaning. All we want them to do is see and say, see and say, see and say. Okay, right. So in our teaching of reading, we have identified 120 sight words for students. Every time they learn 4 sight words every few classes. So we only add these very slowly but surely and give them lots of practice. So now we have phonics and sight words. Phonics and sight words. Now we need to see how these two combine to help our students to fly. Okay, let's take a look. We begin very, very slowly. So after I've taught a, an, is, it, which I just taught you now, we only have 4 sight words. There's a limited amount of reading we can do. A cat, an egg, is a banana. We use a picture because the students do not have the decoding ability to read the word. But they have learned that this is an elephant, right? Remember, elephant begins with A. Right. So after 4 sight words, students can already begin. Is a book. This is the beginning of reading. They start to feel, oh, okay, I start from here and I read here, and I can do it. Is an elf. Okay, now you might think, yeah, that's not really reading. Then I teach them a couple of lessons later. I will teach them 4 more sight words. Let's take a look. I teach them I, see, have, and this. Again, see and say, see and say. Now look at the difference. I see a key, a full sentence. I see an insect. I have an apple. This is a lemon. Teachers, do these kinds of sentence structures look familiar to you? These are the kind of sentence structures that they will find in their English textbooks, right? Especially in book 1. Now we are teaching them to see and say these sight words. Are they really reading? Yes and no. They are just saying the sight words. I have a jet. But in fact, that is what reading is about. And they get the feeling, okay, I have a jet and I know what it means, right? Then we continue slowly but surely. A few lessons later, teach them 4 more. Want, the, that, and like. So now we have a total of 12 sight words. And look at the kind of sentences we can read. A student who has just come into an English class with no sight words or phonics practice before, these sentences are extremely challenging, and the only way they can learn them is by memorization. But if we teach them to read first, and they see these sentences in their books, they immediately will be able to sound it out by themselves. And that's the key, teachers. So let's continue. Let's teach them 4 more. You, my, and do. Look at the kind of sentences we are able to read. Now, I want to remind you, teachers, that these are just sight words. There are no other content words. These are the content words, and we still use pictures. Do you know why? Because our students are still learning the basic alphabet. They are still getting to learn how these word letters come together. So they are unable to read words like orange, rose, and nest. But pretty soon, I'll show you that that starts to change very quickly too. And then finally, so this is all in our level 1. In level 1, we finish by teaching them 4 more sight words. What, he, does, she. These are the first 20 sight words. And look at this, teachers. Oh my goodness, look at this. What does he want? if you know your students, you will know that this is not an easy question to read and to understand, right? What do you see? Do you have a yo-yo? He is a vet. This one may be a little easier. But can you imagine if a student has no preparatory reading classes, they don't learn how to read first, and they are shown these kinds of sentences, how can they begin to even try to memorize these kinds of sentences? But our students now very easily, if they had to see this in their textbook, they would say, oh, I know. What do you see? Boys and girls, when you hear, what do you see? That sound goes to your ear. What do you see? Oh, yes, in the class, my teacher sometimes asks me, what do you see? And that's when they start, okay, I start to understand. And that's very, very important. Still only using sight words, right? So this shows you how powerful sight words are. And then at the same time, we are teaching them blending. E, fe, fe, d, fade. And we are teaching them more and more letters so they are able to blend more and more words together. And slowly but surely, we can move into reading a sentence. Now, here's very important. When you are teaching phonics, you know that your students have the ability to read this word. They know it because they've seen it in a sight word, right? They know this word. So you should definitely not read it for them. What you should do is ask them to read it for you. And once they have said it, you can repeat after your students, but they should not repeat after you. And this is a sight word. This is a content word, but they have learned all the sounds. A, t, ant. Has. Very nice. This will later become a sight word. We haven't taught this one yet, so we treat it as a decodable word. Her ass, an ant has. Very good. Axe. Very good. Sight word. Oh, well done, boys and girls. Let's read it again. Very nice, boys and girls. Sight word, sight word, sight word, sight word. Decodable word, decodable word, decodable word, and decodable word. The students are starting to put the two together. Decodable words using phonics, sight words. And so they start to build their reading ability. And then, of course, we can tie in meaning. They know ant, right? An ant has an axe and a hat. Then they start to understand, oh, okay, this little insect has an axe and a hat. Wow. That's cool, right? Do you see what I'm trying to get at? How we put these two together? It starts off very simply, but as we learn more, then it becomes more and more complex, right? So, teachers, teaching it as soon as possible, even before they begin their main course book, is ideal. Explicitly, a special time to teach them the sounds and the names, and explicitly show them how they come together. Don't forget that. Don't assume that they know it. Most students don't get it unless you show them. Let's take a look at the next one. Phonics should be taught systematically. That's very, very important as well. So we begin with the 26 letters and 26 sounds. And then we do more application of these. So for example, let me show you. Once we have finished the 26 letters and sounds, I don't know if you recall, but when we were teaching the letters E and F, you saw three pictures, right? An elf, an egg, and an elephant. Did you notice that under the pictures there were no words written? Yes, that's very, very important. Because when I'm teaching the letter E, E says egg, right? The word egg, for example, E-G-G. I have not yet taught them the letter G. So how are they able to read that word? It's unreasonable for us as teachers to expect them to read EGG's egg, egg, because they haven't yet learned the sound that G makes. We are only on E, right? That's very, very important. As teachers, we need to know where our students have learned up to. What skills do they have? And if we come to words that contain letters or letter combinations that they don't yet know, we need to pre-teach them by mentioning it to the students, okay? So once we have finished the 26 letters and sounds, then we do them again. So in our level 2, we do the 26 letters and sounds again. But the big difference is, if you take a look here, now under every picture, we have the word. And again, teachers, do you remember the third E? Engaging. When I do this kind of activity, I never read or play the word for the students first. The first thing I will do is ask the students, how do you say this word? How do you say this word? Remember this question, because this is the question I use most often in my class. How do you say this word? The students try to read it. If they read it correctly, excellent. If they make a little mistake or have some problems, then I know I need to help them. But there's no way that I will tell them this word first. They must tell me. And you know what? If they can read this word that they've never seen before, they go, axe, axe. Say, yes, boys and girls, well done. Enjoyable. Their enjoyment, their sense of achievement increases. They say, wow, I can do it by myself. I don't even need the teacher to help me. How do you say this word? Ants. The students read it. I say, yes, very good. Look at all the ants. And they start, oh, okay, I know how to do this. So in the second level, we have lots of application, reading words. And every word they read contains the letters and sounds that they have already learned. Then we can move up. We start to teach them the long vowel sound combination, the letter E and the letter A, for example. So just very quickly, let me show you. Right, boys and girls, this letter's name is E. This letter's name is A. Let me show you some magic. E, A, E. Ta-da! These two letters together usually make the sound E. That's it. That is my presentation. Very efficient. My students see it, they say, oh, okay, now I know that's a special letter combination. these make the sound E. And then we can start to read the words. Who reads the words? My students read the words, not me. I only repeat after the students, right? And then we do lots of activities, practice activities. Sorry, let's go back a bit. Sorry, go back here. We do lots of activities. And then finally, we read a sentence. So everything we do in phonics class leads to reading. And then once we have learned all the different ways that the sound E is made, E, the letter Y at the end, the letter E by itself, yeah, that's about it. Then we can read a whole short passage. Do you see how we are progressing from single words like bed to single sentences, an ant has an axe and a hat, to short passages? That is progress, teachers. And then we can go on to teaching more complex, like the soft C sound, where the letter C makes the sound S. In the very beginning, we taught them the letter C says K. But as they graduate up the scale of the scope and sequence, they can start to accept that C in some words makes the sound S in tent and circus and so on. And then we continue. Our reading passages become longer and longer. Remember, in a reading passage like this, many of these words are sight words. And then at the highest level, where we start teaching OU and OW, every word is accompanied by a sentence, so the reading gets more and more and more and more. So as they improve, we get them to read more and more. Okay. And then our reading passages also get a lot longer. Now, a student who is fortunate enough to be taught phonics and sight words before they begin their textbooks, do you think if they can read this, they will have a problem with their school textbook? I doubt it. I doubt it. Because now we have shown them how. If they know how, they can learn what much easier and even by themselves. Teachers don't have to teach this. They can use this. So our precious classroom time can be spent on using the language, getting them to interact and use it rather than learning vocabulary. If students can decode the words, the vocabulary words by themselves, teachers don't have to spend so much time getting them to memorize. Okay, that's a very important concept. So systematically is very important, from very simple to more and more and more complex combinations. Finally, teachers, we come to the final part, communicatively. Phonics should be taught communicatively. I said at some point that students that are learning a phonics course, a reading course, while they are learning the reading course, they are also acquiring a language. Through the teaching of reading, they become familiar with sentence structures, question formats, and how to interact with the teacher if we teach it communicatively. Now, that communicative teaching adds to the language competence. They understand what is a question, what is a sentence, and how to interact with each of these, so that when they start to read these things, they say, oh, yes, this is a question. This is an information question. This is a yes-no question. I understand what I'm reading, right? So teachers, language competence, one more time, is their familiarity with the conventions of the language, how questions are formed, how sentences are formed, negative sentence as a positive sentence, and so on, right? Very, very quickly. Children acquire their mother language in what we call situational functional language experiences. So when children go shopping with their mother, the mother will continue to speak to them. Lots of language input for the child. And the child will learn the meaning of what the parent is saying by the situation. So when the mother is saying, should we buy a papaya or a coconut? Should we buy a papaya or a coconut? This question is very difficult. But in this situation, the child will infer the meaning. Oh, papaya, coconut. We're in the shop, we're buying things. They will at least say, oh, coconut. They start to learn how to communicate. This boy and his father are making something in the workshop. The boy will hear a lot of language from the father. Pick up the ruler, let's measure how long, and let's cut it. All of this language input accumulates to create the language competence. Now, these children are very lucky to learn English in an English learning environment, a natural environment. What if our phonics or reading class could give them a similar experience? That would be wonderful, wouldn't it? So let's quickly this. I don't have time to talk about this too much, but I want to share with you a word that I have invented. I invented my own word. I hope that one day it can become part of the English language and enter the dictionary. Would you like to know what my word is? Let me show you. Ta-da! Chat teaching. Okay, now I told you that I invented this word, right? And I hope one day, if you see it in the dictionary, you know, oh, yes, that's Craig's word, right? Chat teaching is a way the teacher teaches with the students by means of chatting, not teaching, not instruction, but rather chatting. Why is chatting so important? It's because when we learn our mother language, we learn essentially through chatting. Our parents chat to us, right? If the teacher chats to the students will be more likely to acquire the language because that's how we naturally acquire our mother language, our first language. Okay. Here's a definition. One day, if it becomes a real English word, then we will have a definition, right? So, chat teaching is a method of English teaching characterized by informal, conversational interaction. So the teacher talking to the students, asking questions, just chatting, enabling students to naturally experience and practice English as it is used in real life context. So we need to mirror the way language is used in a natural environment and bring it into the classroom. So this will foster enjoyment and realism in the learning process. So students get a feeling of, oh, this is what English is about. English is not about memorizing vocabulary. It's about using it and chatting and communicating, right? So when we teach phonics, we are using words. Am I right? Okay. Firstly, we have to teach them this combination, right? So let me quickly show you how we do that. This letter's name is S. This letter's name is H. Let's do some magic. S, H. Yes, boys and girls. These two letters come together to make the sound sh. Can you say that? Sh. There we go. Very nice, boys and girls. Just like this. Shop. Shoe. Shop. Shoe. Shop. Shoe shop. Shoe shop. How many times do you hear the sound sh? Twice. There we go. So, boys and girls, these two letters come together to make the sound sh. Very nice. And then we move into teaching the 4 words. Oh, I used the wrong word. Not teaching, students reading the words to us. How do you say this word? Shop. Very nice, boys and girls. Now, this is where chat teaching comes in. The students have decoded the word, they've produced the word. Now we can start to use this as a springboard for natural production. So let's listen to the sentence first. Right? Let's quickly listen. I hope you can hear it. Wait a moment. Switch on my speaker again. Let's try it again. One more time. Here we go.
We go to the shop to buy food.
Oh, we go to the shop to buy food. Boys and girls, do you buy food in a shop? Do you? This is a yes-no question. And they must say yes. They say, okay, what else can we buy in a shop? And then they can start to brainstorm. Toys. And many times my students will just give me one-word answers. For example, they will say TV. They say, yes, that's right. We can buy TVs in a shop. We can buy shoes in a shop. We can buy clothes. And we start to talk about going shopping and the word shop. So, for example, we can say, boys and girls, do you like to go shopping in the shops? Do you go with your mother or your father? And so we start to chat. So we spend about 1 or 2 minutes expanding on each of the vocabularies. And we do that for each of these. So the students are not just learning to read the words, they start to apply it through chat teaching. And the more chat teaching, the more they develop their language competence and their auditory library. Remember, they will hear many, many words. That's very important, okay? And then, of course, we do lots of practice activities. Again, through chat teaching, each of these words is an opportunity. I'm not saying you have to do it with every word, but just chatting about these sentences, make it a little bit of an interaction so students get to experience the language in a natural way. If you do it like this and you go through the whole course, by the time they get to open their school textbooks that we did at the very beginning of our class today, the students will be able to hit the ground running and eat it up for breakfast. It'll be so easy for them. It won't be strange at all, right? Okay. And then we can read the sentence. She sells fresh fish and seashells in a fish shop. Naturally, the students read the sentence, not me, right? And then, of course, we can have a little bit of a chant so the students can get used to reading it fluently. Oh, sorry, give you an example quickly. Here we go.
She sells fresh fish and seashells. She sells fresh fish and seashells.
Okay, and then we can show them a picture. She sells fresh fish and seashells in the fish shop. Their comprehension starts to build around, right? Do you like to eat fish? You do? Okay. My mother says eating fish will make you very smart. This is chair teaching, okay? Then you can answer, where do we buy fish? Ah, yes, in a fish shop. Nice, we learned the word shop already. Okay, so teachers, very, very quickly, we're running out of time, but building this language competence as well as teaching them phonics and sight words is very, very important. We can't just teach these two and not let them build this auditory library and language competence. So finally, I'd like to share with you another example of how we do this. When we are teaching phonics, we will also teach phonics readers. So in our full, this will be reader number 2. Now, phonics readers are very, very simple readers that students are able to read, but that's not enough. Just reading the words on the page is not enough input, and it's actually not a very rich input. So what we do to build this language library, this listening auditory library and language competence, we create what we call an expanded story. This is something that, let me say, in my reader courses, for example, dolphin readers, and in our phonics readers, I've never seen anybody else do this. And this is something I learned from my parents. When they read stories to me before I went to sleep, they never just read the words on the page. They always elaborated. They talked about the picture and different concepts and lessons that we can learn. So just to give you a short sample of what this looks like to improve their language competence, okay? So I'm going to read you the story, and this is the expanded story. So here we go. Today, we are going to read a story about a little boy named Kenny. This is Kenny. Kenny is 5 years old, and can you see Kenny? Can you see his mother and his father? It is Kenny's birthday on Friday, and his mother and father want to buy Kenny a gift. You know what a gift is, right? What do you think Kenny wants for his birthday? And my students will come up with some examples, right? So a car, a jet, a gorilla, right? How about you? Do you like gifts? Yes, no question. They must say, oh, yes, I like gifts. Yes, I do. What would you like as a gift? Then they start to think about themselves. Oh, I want a dog. I want to get some whatever, right? Okay, so then we turn the page. Okay. Before we begin to read, I'll read my expanded story. And when I go like this, you read what the students read. Here we go. Kenny's mother and father don't know what Kenny wants for his birthday. So they come up with a good idea. Do you see, while I am reading the story, I'm using my body language. My students don't understand everything I'm reading, but when they look at me, they start to infer the meaning. They don't know what Kenny wants for his birthday, but they have a good idea. Aha! They don't know the word idea, but now from my motioning, they understand, right? They take Kenny to the toy store, to the shop, to see if they can find a toy that he likes. Wow, look at all the toys. Look at the picture. Wow, there are so many toys in the toy store. Mommy, Daddy, and Kenny look around the store. Okay, Toys, toys, toys. Lots and lots of toys. Daddy sees a very nice toy. He points to the toy and says, yes, this is a kite. Mommy looks at the kite and smiles. But Kenny is not happy. He says, I have a kite. Kenny doesn't want a kite. He already has a kite. How about you? Do you have a kite? And then the student goes, and so we continue our story. Students are reading. Do you notice how we use the picture for dinosaur? Because the students have not yet the ability to read that word. But they can read, I see a big. Sight word, sight word, sight word, decodable word. Teachers, using this expanded story, we are enriching their experience with the language. They are hearing the words. We don't want them to memorize them, but they must be familiar. So one day, for example, in this story, it's called I Have a Gift. The word gift appears more than 40 times in this story. Gift, 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 gift. They hear that word. Pretty soon in their books, they were going to read a word, and the word is gift. Gift. As soon as they sound it out, the sound will go back to their ear. And when it goes back to the ear, they'll say, yeah, ding, 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 ding. This word I know. And comprehension can take place. Okay, so I have time and I've got so much more to tell you, but let's just quickly, these are just examples of reading material that we use. These are phonics readers. So they are designed to help students as they progress. The more they learn, the more they are able to read. And I want to go to the end of the class because we have already finished our time. What I want to say, teachers, is if we teach phonics and sight words, in other words, teaching them to read as early as possible, if we teach it systematically and communicatively before they go into their actual English class, where they get a 4 skills textbook where they learn about vocabulary and structure and all of that, if they learn to read before they go into that kind of a class, they will improve in leaps and bounds. They will outperform our wildest expectation. But if we don't give them this foundation of ability to read, this is what they will encounter. And I don't know about you, but even me, if you ask me to learn this, I would say, forget it. Too difficult. So what we want is not for them to see this. We want them to see this. I can almost read everything that I see. So that means that the teacher doesn't have to spend so much time teaching the vocabulary. The teacher can just say, what's this? And the students will say, tea. If the student learns these words in class, by the time they get home after a long day at school, they have forgotten these words. But never mind, they can go back, open the book, and read the words again by themselves because they have the ability to read. Even if they forget, that's fine. As long as you can read it and recall it by yourself, then you will learn the words much better, okay? That's what we want to give our students. So, coming back to me, I hope in the future, when your students come to you, they say, I'm so excited to begin class. And I know my teacher knows how to help me. My teacher knows that I must learn how before I learn what. And I can read, and I will succeed. Yay! That is the secret, teachers. So, in conclusion, give students the best gift ever. The best gift you can really give them is not all of those vocabulary words. That comes later. The best gift is the ability to help themselves by being able to read. It's really, really so important. So let's do it together, teachers. Let's give our students the gift that they deserve, and that is the gift of reading. I'd like to say thank you very much for spending your Saturday morning with me, and I hope to see you again sometime soon. Good luck with your teaching. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you very much, Mr. Wright, for your insightful and valuable presentations. And I can see there are many messages of appreciation and positive feedback from our participants in the chat box.
Wonderful.
Yeah, and I'm sure you can see them as well.
I wasn't paying attention. Sorry, I was so focused on what I'm doing and going over time. Sorry about that.
Okay, yeah, so okay. Once again, thank you so much, Mr. Wright, for reminding us of the 5 E's and for showing us such practical ways of teaching. And what you shared was not only insightful, but also very engaging and realistic. And it really spoke to us as teachers because there are things we can apply immediately in our classroom.
Right.
Yeah. Mr. Wright, we noticed that you have created some teaching video with your own voice and style for your students. Many of our participants today very interested in receiving similar video valuable resources for their teaching practice. May I kindly ask you for your opinions on whether it could be possible to share the video with the participant after today's sections?
You mean the video that we just done?
Yeah, yes, right.
Video? Sure, we can. And also, I want to let you know that we are working with DTP as well to bring a complete reading course, a phonics course, to the market. So it will be a publication. So all of the things you saw, the readers and that, will one day be a DTP publication available for everybody.
Well, thank you very much. Okay, so so do you have around 15 minutes for our many of these techniques are often applied to young learners. Could you please share how we might adapt them for secondary school students?
Okay. Well, I think a phrase that comes to mind, prevention is better than cure. Secondary students, if they have not been given the right foundation, they will have gone through what I call, the memorization technique of learning English. And that is very unfortunate. So when we're talking about older students, right, most of them have learned English purely through memorization and not by learning to read first. So it's a lot harder for them to treat English as a tool for communication because they've only ever known memorization. So they treat it as a subject that I must write a test on, and I just use the memorized words. They're not used to this communicative chat teaching approach. But that being said, it's never too late. I think the key is for teachers to use English in their classes like language is used naturally. And that's why I coined the phrase chat teaching. Most of your time in your day is just chatting to people. You chat to your parents, you chat to your children, you chat to your friends. In the classroom, especially with older students, if you chat to them, the person is chatting to me. And that is very, very useful for older students. They really relate to that. Instead of the teacher saying, do this, memorize this, the teacher will ask them questions saying, well, what do you think? Do you like to do this? I'm interested in you as a person. not as a student. And that will really make them feel, oh, okay, then I can also share what I feel with the class or with my teacher. And that's very, very important. But still, I'd like to emphasize the basics, the fundamentals must come first. And that's why we can only start with the younger learners, unfortunately.
Today are secondary and high school teachers, so they are curious about how to apply this one. And thank you for your answer. You just showed up. I think even for higher, like secondary student or high school student, you can always start. Then later on, they're just memorizing the word. They don't know how to form the word. They have no ideas of what IPA stand for. They cannot read the phonics word. And not until later in the education, they start figure out how to read the word in dictionary. Now they see the phonics word, the IPA, and they know how to read it. And as a result, even the word that they have never met before, they have never seen in their life in any situation, but when they can still guess how to read the word, and as a result, their reading skill will improve. So in this sharing, Greg have just shared with you the fundamental, the very strong foundation that we need to develop for students, no matter what their age is, whether they are younger student, what their age is, whether they are younger student, secondary student, or even high school student. They can always start doing that. It's never secondary student, or even high school student. They can always start doing that. It's never late.
Older students, because they are older, you can actually teach them much faster. So, for example, in my class, in one class, I might teach one letter. For older students, you could teach them 7 or 8 letters very, very quickly. But it's very important that they understand the concept that the sound of the letter is much more important than the name of the letter. So spelling the word is actually not useful at all. But sorry, this is the letter S, but the letter S represents the sound. So even if you have older students, most of them probably are not very positive towards English because they've had those layers. So once you start to teach them, say, okay, I'm going to show you something different. And again, many teachers assume that their middle school students understand that the sounds create the word, but it's not true. Most of the students don't understand that. So if you take a little bit of time, 5 minutes of every class, say, okay, I'm going to be teaching you the sounds that these letters represent and how the older students learn very quickly. And once they understand the concept, they can start to grow very fast.
Thank you, Mr. Greg. I have a few more questions. They are mentioned. It's still on the same concerning for secondary and high school students. Let me share with you this idea for the, I don't know for other publishers, but for DTV teaching materials, we prepare everything for you. So even for higher level of students, secondary student and high school student, usually we when we introduce the word, Greg had mentioned earlier, presentation, practice, and production. So we present the word, including the name and the sounds of that word. So we usually introduce the name of the word with the IPA, the spelling, not the spelling of the word, but the pronunciation of the word. They are able to know the IPA system, how to pronounce them, like the letter P sound. And then later on, when they look, sometime when they are learning, and I'm sure it will happen for all students when they start learning on their journey, they cannot know all the names of the English word. But now they can develop the self-study skill. They look at the dictionary, they know how to read the word. They know how to read the IPAs. And then as a result, they can read. And even for, reading longer text, we have sight word, we have phonics word.
Decodable words, yeah.
Yeah, very young age and up to, high level, even adult. You
Forever,
can always
yes,
consider these
adult,
strategies, right? Yeah.
One thing I want to caution, about and actually explain the difference between phonics and IPA, right? Phonics is natural, the natural letter sound combination. And so that's why native speakers in Western English speaking countries, children begin with phonics. Actually, native speakers do not learn IPA because we don't need to. We use phonics. So what I would recommend is if you are teaching secondary or older students, IPA should not be the first tool that you use. The first tool should be phonics. And that's why I recommend teachers, even though you're secondary and high school teachers, teach them these sounds. Teach them explicitly. Take your flashcards and say, this is the letter S. S says, first let them use phonics. That's the first step. If they cannot solve it, then they should use IPA. Because the reason why I say that is if you want to teach them the IPA symbols, then that just doubles the students' load because they have to learn the alphabet and then IPA, and then they go from the IPA to the word. If you use phonics, you go from phonics directly to the word and not use a third step. Do you see what I mean? And if they rely on IPA, when they are reading and there's no IPA in the text, they will get stuck. So that's why we don't recommend the teaching of IPA. So for example, in an ideal situation, children in primary school, grades 1, 2, 3, and 4, they learn phonics, the whole system. Then in grade maybe 5 or 6, they just learn the symbols of the IPA. Because in English, about 20% of English words are irregular words that you cannot use phonics to decode. Then for those words, for example, like a word like ocean, we can use IPA to try and fit. But most 80% of the words, we must just use phonics because that's more efficient instead of having to look up the IPA. So again, even for older students, secondary, junior high school, and I would recommend teachers go to phonics first. Go through the whole system, okay? And then teach them the IPA. If they rely on the IPA, that will become a weakness for them. They will rely on it. Where's the IPA? Where's that? But if they use phonics, we call it a word attack skill. When I come to a new word, no problem. I just use my phonics to attack it and sound it out. And who knows, maybe the sound is already in my auditory library. As I sound it out, oh, now I know this is what it looks like. You see what I mean? So don't emphasize IPA too much. That's only there in the case of those 20% words that are not decodable using phonics. In an ideal situation.
Thank you, Mr. Craig. Yeah.
Okay,
Are there any other questions?
Peter Frick, can you say any questions? Other questions here?
I think that's enough, and we move to the second section. We have mentioned earlier the method for teaching reading for the students. And for the second section, we want to provide you with a useful material for you to consider using. DTB Corporation, we prepare a wide range of material from the student entrance to the student graduation at your school. So we prepare all the material ready for the teachers. That's one thing I want to share with you on my next section. Another thing that I want to share with you is that right now, the class time teaching is limited. We don't have a lot of time in the class, but lucky enough, we have digital, jamming, IA, AI, etc., everything. And we also prepare the digital things to help the student extend their learning, not only in the classroom, but outside the classroom. They have app, they have software, they can touch outside the classroom. And you may agree with me on this point. The more you invest in, the more the outcomes will be. You can invest in time, effort. So do the student. If they invest more time and effort in learning, then the result will naturally happen. And Rex is also sharing with you the natural approach in reading. It's just like when the student is start learning their first language, they also start learning with the phonics, and then later on they will gradually improving their reading skill. And with DTB, we will not only prepare you the material that necessary for the classroom use, but also outside the classroom. We have the whole system that go along with the student development, with their learning journey from preschool to primary to secondary and up to university. And please allow me to share with you our platform and our system that some of you are curious thing about. You are asking that what, where, and who you can find those materials. So now is your time to stay focused, and then the material will be introduced to you right now. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Greg. Mr. Greg.
Goodbye, everybody.
Yeah.
Good luck with your teaching.
Yeah, thank you. Now I'm going to share with you the slide right now. Okay, now please type in the chat box. If you see my screen clearly, you will type it good in the chat box. Thank you. Thank you. Now we get started. Supposing that you are a school owner, you are a school owner. So when the student enters to your school, what do you need to do for them? You are a school owner. So when the student get into your school, what do you need to do for them first? Thank you. Thank you, Miss Wan. Yeah, we need a placement test, right? Because you need to know where their abilities are, how good they are in English. So of course, you need a placement test for them. And then after the placement test, to see where their learning ability is, what will be the next step? Yeah, teaching materials, of course. Like, so when the student enter to your school, when they enter into your school, you need to know who they are, how good their English is by providing them a placement test. And that placement test will tell you that where your student is. And then after that, you need to provide them the right material for them to study. The materials is not only for classroom use, but also outside the classroom. And for outside the classroom, what do you need? Of course, you need another helping hand, that digital platform. And then after that, after they study with you, you provide them the right material. And then what will be the final step for the student before they graduate from your school? Oh yeah, assessment. What else? You have ongoing assessment and achievement assessment as well. So at the end, we may need some certificate to prove as an evidence for their achievement, maybe some international recognition certificates for them to graduate from school, and then they can get ready for the job market, they can get ready for daily life. So in DTB, we provide you a platform we call LCMS. And this LCMS will go along with your teaching journey, as if whether you are a teacher or an educational system. So we provide you a solution we call iSchool or LCMS. It stands for Learning Content Management System. We will provide you all the content necessary for teaching. So first of all, when the student enter to your school, we'll provide you with a placement test. Would take roughly 40 minutes up to 1 hour. And after taking the placement test, you will know whether your student are. And then we'll provide you English course books, and practice test material that go along with the English course book from preschool, K1, K2, K3 to primary to secondary, high school, and adult. And then finally, we also provide you option number 4. This is an international certification as a proof for their achievement, and then they can get ready for job. They get admission, visa or admission to other countries to get a job. So this is our solution, and the solution will be shown with you on our platform called LCMS system. So with our LCMS system, we will have an admin, an account for the school, account for teachers, account for students, and you can log in anywhere and anytime to study. As I mentioned earlier, we know that one of the barriers we have for students is that we don't have enough time in the classroom. You may have like 100 teaching hours per school year, maybe more than that. But the student also need to study outside the classroom as well. And when they go outside the classroom, we need a platform. We need something to help them to study in a more engaging way. So LCNF is a solution for that. The student can log in our system to study outside the classroom. And let me share with you the materials we have. This is for primary student. We have 3 new series that go with digital things. The first new series we have is Let's Shine. And the second one we have English with Mercy and Story Central. That's the 3 new series we have. Here's the academic information for you to have a look at. So Let's Shine, we have 6 levels. We'll take the student from A1 to A2 plus level. And we will prepare the student not only for the general English, but also prepare them to get ready for international exam. And we have a lot of teaching materials on this column. I will share with you the components. So this is the teaching material, the teaching and learning material we have for students. Let's go on our website, LCMS. I'm going to show you later on. And then we have another series for your options, English with Mercy. This is quite the famous cartoon from BBC. They have a whole series, and this cartoon is well known international. And they turn those cartoon series into an English course book, teaching various languages, including English. And this book again is also focused on preparing general English, communicative English for the student, and also ready for exam. But they use video-based learning. There's a lot of videos based on this famous cartoon series, and then they develop a lesson for the student. And of course, like Greg mentioned earlier, we have usually for early level, they would start introducing phonics for the student, and then later on developing the content needed for communicative and exams. Another series we have is Story Centrals. This is for primary. Story Centrals, they will based on reading. There's a lot of reading content here, and we base on the reading content to prepare the student for general English and exam as well. And it's also take the student from A1 to A2 plus level. We also have a lot of useful teaching materials that I'm going to show you later on our platform, LCMS. Now we move to secondary. For secondary, we have Keep It Real. This is a brand new series for secondary student. If you are looking for something to prepare your student for exam and communicative language, so this is a really engaging series for your consideration. Why do I say that? Because the word real here stands for relevant material. We use relevant videos, relevant concepts for the student to study the language, authentic content. So that the first letters R stand for real. It's not only using the video with authentic content, but we also develop a 21st century skill for the student, really align with the CFR level and prepare student for exam. The word E stand for engaging. All the materials that we prepare in the books is something related to secondary student, teenagers, the vlogs that they may enjoy with authentic content. The letter A stands for achievable. The materials that we prepare here in every lesson, we have activities for average student and even for really good student. because in every corner of the book we have fast finishers. It's those for above average student. They can finish the task faster than the other, and then they will have another challenge to do. The letter L stands for learning, because that means I mentioned earlier, will not only provide the student with general English, but also the 21st century skill, the learning process, and prepare them for international exam as well. For high school students, we have a new series, Bright Horizon. This is for high school student, grade 10, 11, 12. And we will develop this one into a 6th level later on. For A2, we'll take the student from A2 to B1 level. And for adults, I mean communicative adult young learner, adult learners, or young adult learners, we have this series, Big Pictures. And another series we have here is the Personal Best. So those are series for young adults and adult learner. Please allow me to go into our platform, LCMS, to share with you the teaching materials later on. But now we will go through the course book we have. Another course book for young adults and adults are C21st. If you are looking for something specifically develop the 21st century skill for the student, as well as prepare them for exam and communicative English. So 21st is a new series for your consideration. Because in every lesson, we will have specific 21st century skill that need developing for the student, and how we can really develop that for the student. In 2026, we will start launching this new series, Improve, for the student. It will take the student from A1 to C1 level. It's also for young adults and adults. And here are the learning materials we have. If you want to look for something to provide them with language skill, like you have a course book already, and you want to skip that course book, but you want to strengthen the language skill for the student. So we have the skill book for the student, like writing skill, reading skill, listening skill. And so for your consideration, you can, if you want to strengthen your curriculum to develop specific skill for the student, you can consider using this one. And finally, we also have some English for specific purposes. So supposing that in your English center, you want something to strengthen your teaching curriculum, then you may consider those series like English for medical, English for business, English for banking, for accountancy, etc. So we have another series we call ESP, English for specific purposes. So if you look back on, I will send a slide to you later on, because my time is limited, so I don't have time to go into details for every series. But in general, I want to share with you one thing. We have material for preschool up to university student, and even some English for specific purposes as well. Here are test preparation. We have a test book that prepare the student for specific tests. Now, after you provide them with general English, now you want them to be ready for specific tests. So you can consider using our material right here. We have tests, we have books, prepare student for Cambridge First, for preliminary for school, for A2 key for school, for language search, for IELTS, for TOEIC. So we have on the teaching materials that if you want to prepare your student for international exam, like IELTS here, and language search as well. So let me go to this one. Please allow me to go to our platform to share with you the materials we have. But before we go to that, would you please type in the chat box some name of the book that I have mentioned in my introduction. If you can remember any names of the book, please type that in the chat box. I just want to see that how well you can catch up with me. Okay, Mercy, C21st. Go on. Let's Shine. Thank you. Pride. Pride Horizon. Personal Best. That's right. English with mercy, let's shine. Thank you. See 21st. Okay, big pictures, good. Keep it real. That's right. English for business. Great, thank you. So you are fully paying attention. Improve, yeah. You are fully pay attention. That's the reason why you can remember those titles, even though I'm speaking too fast. I know. Now, let me go into the digital platform that we have right here. So this is the digital platform we have. We call it LCMS system. And if you go to our digital platform, you can generate the branches, the school years management, grade management, etc. There are so many functions here. And if you are interested in using our platform, please contact with us. Leave your information and we will reach you and then guide you how to use our solution here for your teaching. You can also manage user, you can manage classes, manage teachers, and the content. You can assign the content for teachers. As you can see here, we have content from pre-K to K1 student, primary student, and then up to primary student here. We have a lot of teaching material, including the books that I have mentioned earlier, like Let's Shine, Story Central, English with Mercy, I Learn Smart World, Math and Science. We have a huge resources for your consideration here to use. And we also have AI for speaking, AI speaking tutors as well. This is for primary student. And then when we go up to secondary student, like grade 6, grade 8, and 7, again, you can see here we have a lot of resources for your consideration. Some title that I mentioned earlier, like Bright Horizon for secondary student, My IELTS, Keep It Real, books for develop specific skill like listening and speaking, reading and writing, if you want to consider that, right? So we have main course books, supplementary material course book, and companions as well. So there's so many choices for you. It's like a buffet party. And I cannot introduce to you everything today. But so if you are interested in using our platform and resources, please contact us or leave us the information, your interest. We will reach you and give you further information. This is for high school students. Again, we also have many series here for your consideration. We have Bright Horizon, Smooth Skill, Keep It Real, etc., and textbook as well. Then up to university level, we have C21st, we have personal best, we have my IELTS, big pictures, everything here, right? So we have a lot of teaching materials. So let me share with you something in common. I will start with the series left side here. Now, if you use our platform right here, when you go to the book, when you go to the series, wait a minute. Okay. Okay, so when you go inside the X series, we will prepare teaching material for you, learning material for the student, practice test bank for both student and teachers, and exam bank for both student and teachers. For teaching materials, we will prepare PowerPoint slide, which is ready for you to use in the classroom. We have software for you to use in the classroom. We have extra worksheet in case you want, extra activities for the student, teacher's book, audio books, and etc. Flashcard. So we have everything ready for the teachers to use in the classroom. And for student, as learning material, we have software for students to practice at home. I mean, outside the classroom, this can be anywhere. They can, even log in a coffee shop when they are hanging out with their parents, and they can log in into our system and study there. Let's go with reading content as well. And then finally, we have practice test bank for the student. Now, before I go into this one, supposing that you are conducting a unit test using a paper-based test format, what do you have to prepare for your student? Can you share with me the common tasks that you have to do in the classroom if you want your student to get ready for exam using the paper-based? No, I will ask and then you can answer my question with by typing yes or no for that. Do you have to design a test for your student? Design a test. Make a test for them? Yes, right. Do you need to print them out? You print out the test. Yes. And then after printing out the test, you will deliver them to the student. They will do the test. And then you will collect them, right? And then you will check it. And then after checking the test, you give them score, and then you do the report on the score. So you see, on the learning process, on the testing process will take you quite a lot of work, a lot of paperwork, right? If you're considering using our platform right here, all the tests will be done using computer-based. We have the test already prepared for you. Whatever the series that you are using from us, Let's Shine, English with Mercy, Story Central, Keep It Real, whatever. Whatever the series that you consider using from us and whatever the level that you are using, like big pictures or personal best, we prepare the test for you already using computer-based. And the test will not only align with the unit content, but also prepare the student to get familiar with the international test format. I mean, when the student do the test here, they themselves will get familiar with the international exam test format. That means they will be prepared and get ready for international exam where they get for certificates. And on the tasks that you have mentioned earlier, including designing the test, print out the test, deliver it to the student will do the test, correction, and check everything. So everything will be done in one click. You will assign the test to the student. They will do it online right here. And after they finish doing the test, they just submit. And when they submit, the result will be get. They will have the result. And for teachers, you don't have to worry much about that. With your account here, you can assign the test to the student, and then you can see their score. And you can also have the report right here. You will see the report. The score will be automatically include in the report for you, and then you can see the student progress, like which skill they are good at, which skill they are not good at. For example, they are good at listening, but not really good at reading or something like that. We also have data that already analyzed for you, and you know which skill that you need to improve for your student, which skill that you need to emphasize to help them study better. So with our learning platform system right here, all the learning process will be solved with these resources. And as the student account, they can also see the task. What that mean? When the teacher assign the task for them to do in the classroom, they will be noticed on their phone or then the website right here. They know that they have assignment to complete, they have exercise to complete, they have tasks to complete. And then when they do it, the teachers will see the result in the teacher score. They can also see their learning progress, their score, and the student can also see the report by themselves as well. And of course, the student will be assigned with a learning learning resources, like supposing that I put my student into a placement test. So they will do the placement test at the beginning of the course, and then I will know that where they are. Then they will go to the learning resources. For example, they are primary students, so they can go to all the learning processes, learning materials right here, including the video lectures and the DHA, the home activities. So this solution, as I mentioned earlier, because we want the student to practice more, and the more they practice, the better the result will be. So if you consider, as teachers, you consider using our platform, LCMS right here, you will provide a learning environment for the student, or not only in the classroom, but also outside the classroom as well. They can study anywhere, anytime. And the resources are available for preschool to, even adult and university student. We have all the resources. Whatever the level of student you are teaching, you can always find the resources we have right here. Let me recap and remind you the material for your consideration. Firstly, if you are teaching primary students, we have 3 new series here: Let's Shine, English with Mercy, and Story Central. Can you type the name in the chat box? That will remind you of the name. And in case you are looking for the material, you know who and where to contact. This is for primary learners. Could you please help me to type the name of this series in the chat box? Okay. Okay, now my question is, for primary student, which course book do you have? Please type the name. Okay, English with Mercy, Let's Shine, and Story Central. That's right. I just want you to keep in mind those theory. Right? Now, for secondary learners, for secondary learners, for secondary learners, what series do you have? Keep it real. Yeah, keep it real. Achiever. Right, that's good. Or you forget one. You forget one title. Pride Horizon is a brand new series. Is it for secondary and high school student? All right. And for adult learners, I mean 18 plus student, we have big pictures. Yeah, we have big pictures for adults and young adult learners. Yeah, big pictures. What else? Personal best. Mhm. And C, 21st. Right. Those series is for adult learners. And in 2026, we'll have a new series, Improve. Improve your English. Will be ready in 2026. And then we have skills book. If you want to teach reading, listening, or writing skill, we have Pacific skill book that can go along with the course book as a supplementary material to strengthen the skill for the student. And we have ESL book, English for Pacific purposes. And if you use our book, and if you use our series right here, ETB series right here, it will go with a platform we call LCMS system. The platform will give you all the contents for teaching and learning. If you use our contents right here, the LCMS system, so what can you do? Let me go into the platform right here as a just wait a minute. No, if you go to our, if you use, if you consider using our platform, the LCMS system, at the school, you can manage the calendars, the teaching schedule, the content, the result, the teachers, the classes, the branches. So you can manage so many things here. That means every paperwork that you use to run your school now will be turned into digital. That means it will take away a lot of paperwork for you. And so we have this platform. And especially for teachers, we have a really good content for you to use in the classroom. We have, if you choose one of the series we have right here, that will provide you with the useful content that you can use. Now, supposing that you are teaching adult student and you use C21st, we have teaching materials that may include PowerPoint, software, actual worksheet, what else? Teaching plans, something like that. So this will include all the necessary material for you to run a program successfully. So we have teaching material for teachers, and then we have, let's go. We have teaching material for students. We have learning material for students. Those material will help the student to study outside the classroom. And then we also have the content material, the practice material for both teachers and students. You will turn every test into computer-based instead of you doing, paper-based that take a lot of time, preparation time, a lot of paperwork for you as well. So in short, if you are interested in the LCMS system, so you can leave a message here for us. If you are interested in our content, our material, and the LCMS system, please leave a message on the chat box, and then we will follow you later on with the system and with the material. Yeah, just leave a message there, and our later on for more information, because with the time limitation for today's workshop, I cannot share with you all the functions and all the information needed for this one.
Thank you very much, Mr. Phước, for your sharing on both of teaching books and digital LCMS solutions. The valuable insights truly help teachers see how traditional resources and digital platform can go hand in hand to support our teaching. I can see so many people give message like they interested in the LCMS. Okay, so dear teacher, if you are interested in exploring more about the books as well as the digital transformation tools, please feel free to contact us. DGP have a dedicated support team across all regions of the country, always ready to accompany and assist you. Yeah.
Well, I have really long messages from Mr. Rosami.
Wow.
I want to express. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Any questions?
Wonder how to use. Yeah. Yeah. That's. Thank you very much for your interest. We have your information when you register onto the website, the webinar today. So we have your information, and you leave the message there that you are interested in our platform teaching materials. So we will reach you later on and guide you in details. We will work with you in details later on that which course book that you are interested in, and we will also show you how to use our system. As I mentioned earlier, the system that we prepare here is for you as teachers, because we want to make your teaching easier. We want to take away the burden that you are having on your shoulder. Preparing the material, choosing the right material for your student, so to achieve useful teaching tips for you to apply in the classroom later for your career development as well. And we will continue having those kind of workshops in the future.
Directly via your registered email. This webinar is being live streamed on Zoom, Facebook, and YouTube. And after the event, the recording will be available on our official YouTube channel, so participants may watch it again at their convenience. And ladies and gentlemen, as today's webinar come to a close, we have had the opportunity to listen and learn from such a profound insight from the theoretical foundation to practical strategy in building strong reading skill for young learners. On behalf of organizing committee, I would like to sincerely thank Mr. Craig Wright and Mr. Trần Phước for their invaluable contributions. And now, teacher, on the screen, you can see the QR code. Please kindly scan it and leave it your feedback for us. Let's show QR code for me, please. Can you turn down the music, please? Sorry, turn down the music down. Show the QR code.